If I were to tell you that Zonky Zero Last Beginning is a first-person, real-time survival sim dungeon RPG, you'd justifiably think that it'd be impossible for a game to juggle that many genres and still end up being remotely okay. But what if I told you that Zonky Zero nailed the execution of all of them while providing a beautifully unique experience and a heart-wrenching story to boot? To understand how it pulls that off, you first need to know who worked on it. Producer Yoshinori Terasawa and creative director Takayuki Sugawara, both from Danganronpa fame, returned for their first original IP since the series wrapped up in 2017. Zonky Zero released in the West on April 9th, 2019, on PS4 and Steam. To be honest, I was worried that the absence of Kazutaka Kodaka on the project would lead to a derivative title that failed to recapture the lightning in the bottle that was Danganronpa, and luckily I'm very happy to take a giant L in that regard. The comparison between the two is almost unfair, since the only thing Zonky Zero really adopts from Danganronpa is its wonderful creative spirit and how it approaches its gameplay and story. Even if you have no attachment to those games, you can absolutely get a lot out of this, just as long as you can handle some heavy subject matter. Don't worry though, this video will be spoiler free. Zonky Zero starts off with a bang, or rather a drop. Haruto Higurashi is an editor at a magazine publishing firm who decides to end his life after a mysterious set of circumstances. After jumping off a rooftop, he suddenly wakes up on the shores of the desolate Garage Island with 7 other strangers. They're all alone, their only company being a mysterious television program called Extend TV. The chipper hosts of this program inform them of 2 shocking revelations. The world has ended, and all of them are clones. Whenever one of them dies, they're able to be reborn via a device called the Extend Machine, preserving their consciousness, but reverting their bodies back to those of children. All except one of them have the quirk of aging at an abnormally rapid speed, only living for about 13 days. Each of them also represents a different deadly sin. Haruto represents Sloth, Rinko Lust, Ryo Envy, Yuma Gluttony, Zen Wrath, Minamo Pride, Mamoru Greed, and the mysterious Sachika represents the original sin, and is the only one not affected by the aging phenomenon. They have to work together to survive, overcome their troubled pasts, and use this cycle of death and rebirth to their advantage to uncover the truth of what really happened to the world. The story isn't the only headliner when it comes to Zonky Zero, since I can say with the utmost confidence that the gameplay is fascinatingly good. Taking into account that this is the team's first foray into DRPGs, it's impressive how much they were able to reinvigorate the genre. I've heard the game described as a non-stop survival game, and yeah, that sums up the main gimmick pretty well. Players explore the world through a first-person perspective, in grid-based areas similar to that seen in the Etrian Odyssey series. You use the cursor to interact with the environment, which lets you gather materials, activate switches to solve puzzles, and whack goats to death. The actual combat is pretty simple. You aim the cursor at the part of the enemy you want to hit, and you attack once for each active party member, which is usually 4. Following this, weapons have various cooldown times depending on which one you have equipped. There are multiple different types of weapons, all dealing different types of damage and having various specialities. In addition to standard attacks, you can instead choose to charge up your attacks to deliver more damage and even pull off combos to increase your score. But be careful, you're left vulnerable while you do this. What Zonky Zero's combat lacks in complexity, it makes up for in the fact that it all happens in real time. Enemies don't just sit around waiting for you to make a move like a traditional DRPG. Everything in the world of Zonky Zero is alive at all times, and trying to hunt you down. You're going to have to keep moving and actively avoid enemy attacks, and in many cases, even use the environment in clever ways to kill these monsters. Even inventory management is real time, all of which crafts a raw kind of strategy many DRPGs fail to deliver. It's simply thrilling, and the survival mechanics add yet another fun level of complexity that keeps you on your toes. You'll need to maintain each party member's hunger and stress levels, and gather and cook food to prevent them from starving on the field. All your actions take up stamina, including resting and attacking, so you'll need to keep a good amount of food on you at all times. What's more, you also need to make sure they, and I'm not making this up, relieve themselves occasionally so they do not have accidents on the field. Yep, you heard me correctly, there is a literal bathroom mechanic in this game. Do you believe me now when I said that this was one of the most unique RPGs I've played? Thankfully, you're given a breather from managing the status of your characters every time you return to the base, letting you take time to cool your head and prepare for another expedition. While here, you can also use the materials you've gathered to expand your base, creating a satisfying gameplay loop where gathering helps you explore more efficiently, which of course helps you collect more materials. I love game design like this, where it feels like every mechanic was well thought out to work in tandem with each other. The gameplay also ties into the game's main themes, but none more so than the previously mentioned extend system. Every time one of your characters dies, they're reborn as children with their level and memories intact. However, depending on how they die, they gain permanent buffs called Shigabane, so in a way, dying is actually encouraged in order to improve your characters more than the skill point system already does. These can be anything from their lifespan lengthening, increasing total stamina, or just gaining a permanent stat increase. This not only works great in terms of gameplay, but introduces a very interesting concept in the narrative about how this cycle ends up affecting the characters. I'm gonna leave that one for you to uncover yourself though.
That's love.
Finally, the last thing that really adds depth to both the exploration and combat is the Cleone system, which are these cool little tentacle implants that give characters a variety of abilities. Some can be support skills for the team, while others can be attack-based and even help you explore new areas. Alright, now I know all this sounds like an overwhelming amount of mechanics, but holy shit, do they all blend together flawlessly. The exploration, combat, and survival systems are always in sync, creating the perfect level of stress that kept me on my toes and enjoying myself the entire time. If I had one criticism with the game, it'd be that the bosses are a tad on the tedious side, but hey, that's honestly not too distracting. But Cullen, you might say, I don't really like survival games, or Cullen, what if I love survival games as much as I hate myself? Well, fear not, hypothetical topic shifter, because Zanki Zero has you covered on both oddly specific fronts. There are 5 difficulty options to choose from, allowing you to experience the game literally however you want. I know dungeon RPGs aren't for everyone, but the amount of options available here make this one of the most accessible DRPGs on the market. This is also due to how just gorgeous the entire game is. The environments are downright stunning, conveying the right amount of desolate beauty every post-apocalyptic game strives for, but rarely achieves. The beautiful blue sky the game starts under intentionally conflicts with the game's darker tone. The dungeons, all of which are designed around the trauma of a specific character, have you explore the washed up ruins of establishments that are once vital to society, now devoid of all life. The 3D models all look great, and the team clearly put a lot of work into giving each character a wide variety of emotions for every age. This might also be a good time to mention that the PC port, which is the version I reviewed, is of insanely high quality. Playing this game on a controller is fine, but playing on a mouse and keyboard feels like a dream. My personal recommendation is going to be to pick this game up on Steam, but either platform will be totally fine. The sound design lives up to the legacy of Danganronpa. I can't find any information on the composer, but the 51-track OST was really enjoyable. One neat feature is that the music is essentially optional. In the second chapter, the characters find a music player so they can choose any of the currently available songs at will, or just listen to the ambient noise of the ruins they explore. The game has dual audio too. This is the first dub Spike Chunsoft has done since opening their western branch, and the quality honestly blew me away. I really wish the entire game was voice acted instead of adopting the partial voice acting like Danganronpa, but what is voiced was all fantastic. The story was one of the biggest surprises, and it didn't take me long to consider this just as good, if not better, than the Danganronpa games. All of the characters have unique quirks to them, but they never really came across as caricatures. The game is broken into several stages, with a perspective switching to a new character every stage. A new dungeon is also introduced at the start of every stage, centering around the traumatic past of each cast member. In specific parts of the dungeons are little TVs, where the host of Extend TV share episodic looks into their backgrounds, called Conquest videos. Fair warning, these deal with some of the heaviest subject matter I've seen explored in a game. What drives this home is the silly contrast in how the hosts of Extend TV present all this serious information. Their nonchalant attitude contrasts with the uncomfortable subject matter, but you can tell it's clearly intentional. It makes these scenes feel even more cruel, and their inclusion was definitely a highlight for me. One of the recurring themes is about dealing with trauma, and the arcs the cast go through are worth mentioning. They're not really as simple as, "And so, they got over every single issue, and lived happily ever after." Because that's not how life works. Humans are capable of change, but it's a gradual process. The cast doesn't magically get better after their dungeons are cleared, but they change in believable ways where you can tell they're trying without becoming brand new characters. They feel like real people, which makes it easier to sympathize with them despite who they were in their past. It's elevated significantly by a high-quality localization in terms of translation and the actual act of implementing said translation into the game. The damn opening was even fully translated, which is rare to see. Even if you aren't a fan of dungeon RPGs, this game is easily worth checking out for the plot alone. Zanki Zero Last Beginning gave me everything I wanted and more. As a huge fan of DRPGs, and as someone who respects the Danganronpa team greatly, it makes me happy that their first new IP since DR ended was spectacular. Its gameplay might not be for everyone, but if you're open-minded to this unique spin on the genre, then it'll be easy to get into. It also packs a powerful story that isn't afraid to make you uncomfortable, with grounded characters that might just be some of the best to come from Spike Chunsoft in a while. I'm trying my best not to overhype this, but as you can see, I had next to no issues during my experience playing it. Everything kind of worked for me, and I think if you gave it a chance, you might feel the same. Don't sleep on this. New IPs that take risks to this extent are really worth supporting. I give Zanki Zero Last Beginning an A+.